conversation, by the way. So, free pass on the fucks. Our audience are savages.
Yeah, that was one of my first questions. I was going to ask J Bob what's the whole language barrier, and then I looked at open micers, and I just kept seeing little E's, and I was just like, "We're good,
Yep, we're good.
we're good." You may have to put a cap lock on this E, but fuck it, we'll roll with it.
That's all right, man. We are very explicit.
Honestly, like you said, you had a list of things of stories that we could talk about because I mean we've got I don't even know where we would even start when we get in the show. Like after we introduce you and we go into it, like where do we even start?
Yeah, I mean, this is
holy fucking shit, Gooter.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, we can definitely break this up and go over some stuff. We can kind of do this like a chronological thing where we just leave the people just wanting a little bit.
Yeah, we could always leave it off too and have you back on another show
because I mean
too.
we can do like pre-tour and then getting into when we got the van and started going, and then we can touch into like on the tour and get into the Texas story.
Okay.
That sounds great, man.
Let me make sure this is going good.
Whatever stories you want to tell, dude, as long as we have you talking, that's what the people want.
Yeah.
All right. Jeez, I can't believe people want to hear me for an hour.
They do. If they don't, I do, and dude, that's what matters.
That's all that matters. I got one at least. I'm good.
I've been telling road stories for a while on stage, so you've become a bit of you're a mystery.
A mystery to a community that helped birth me.
Yeah. All right. Well, here's how it's gonna work. We'll come in. I got to play the music, and actually, you know what? Do you want to just add the music? Well, I guess since it's video, I should play the music, and then we'll come in and
music.
And we already got the pre-roll recorded, so.
Yeah, we do have to do our Patreon shout out to Derek, though.
Okay.
So we'll do a Patreon shout out, then we'll play some music you won't be able to hear, introduce ourselves, we'll introduce you, and then we'll just talk.
I'm just going to get high.
All right.
That's fucking hell yeah, Gooter. That is exactly what you should be doing.
Awesome. All right. Well, here we go. Jacob, you ready?
Yes, dude. Right. I'm so ready.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to another edition of the Open Micers podcast. And we have to give a great big shout out to our Patreon supporter, Mr. Derek Diamond. Thank you so much for supporting us over at www.openmicerspodcast.com for as little as $1 a month. And let's go ahead and play that music, baby.
Yes, sir. That music means it's time for the Open Micers podcast. My name is Jason Robbins.
I'm more yoked than the Eggman himself. I'm Jacob Craig. And dude, our guest tonight. You want to introduce him, Jason? You can introduce him.
I've been telling some road stories for a while on stage at the open mics and telling a few stories here and there on the podcast here, but this man has become a bit of a legend. He's even had some memes created about him by some of the other comedians, and I just had to get him on the show. I haven't talked to this dude. How long has it been since we've talked? Like,
at least 3-4 years.
Probably 3 years since we've talked. And the last time we were together, I watched this man demolish like 80 pounds of crawfish with his dad and get kicked out of Toronto's. But he is the man, the myth, the legend. He is Mr. Jason Gutierrez, a.k.a. Gooter.
Kicks out for Gooter.
Yeah.
Thank you for that introduction, J-Bob. Dude, I'm happy to be here. I'm so glad to be here.
So you have a whole list of things we could go through, which we probably won't even get to half of it in one podcast. So we might have to break this thing up over the next couple of months. So
Yeah.
How do we even start this off? Like I met you back.
So I have actually known you longer than you've known me. This goes back to fucking the Sicily's days.
Oh yeah.
When you were running that place, and I would come in and see you there and just know you from Ferrigno.
Yeah.
You know, I would come in and they'd nudge me and be like, oh, drummer Ferrigno. And then I remember
for those of you that don't know, before Fall as Well, I was in a band. I was in a funk band called Ferrigno. And yes, we did name ourselves after Lou Ferrigno, and we had a song called Hail Ferrigno.
And I actually found that CD at our thrift store, our local thrift store, for like $2, bought it and brought it to practice that night. Just to show them that shit was still actually in circulation.
Damn.
Have you told Lou Ferrigno about the band Ferrigno, Jason?
He knows about the band Ferrigno. We even showed him, he was at a con like years and years ago, and somebody brought him the CD to sign. I don't remember who it was, but they said he thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Hell yeah, dude.
So I remember it was a battle of the bands at, I believe, was it Michael's, that bar that was the country club in the hotel on Highway 49?
Yes. Yeah.
There was a battle of the bands going on, and Droppin' Trowel was there. I can't remember if we were playing or not, but
I wasn't even in the band yet. For that,
no, you weren't. You were just there because I believe it was like 7. It was like 7 left. So this was like, Durwood and all of those guys, and you were there. And then that was the night that I actually got my fake ID. I got caught with the fake ID at Michael's. So I had a fake ID made for the Droppin' Trowel shows, which was Fall as Well before the name change. So I had a fake ID made to get into the shows so I could set up for the guys. And then come to, a few months later, after getting into the casinos, being able to go to all the nightclubs in the casinos and gamble, I get busted at a country bar for a fake ID and have to pay the $20 cover. And I had to do the walk of shame and convince the bouncer to let me go talk to my parents, who were 20 feet away, and get the $20 from them to pay the cover charge.
And just to clear up any confusion, Fall as Well, before we were called Fall as Well, we were called Droppin' Trowel.
Right.
Until we were signed to Universal, and Universal made us change it because they said the name Droppin' Trowel would turn off any potential female listeners. I'm like, what?
Fuck you, Universal Records.
So we actually floated around a few names, and one of the top contenders was Dump Truck. We were going to call ourselves Dump Truck.
That's what they called me in high school.
Yeah.
So that was really the first night that I remember like meeting you and hanging out with you. I don't think you remember it because you were talking to a girl that I went to high school with, Tiffany. And so that was where like we kind of started talking a little bit before you came into DT/Fall as Well. That whole time. And then our first night, we did have like a real good hangout night at the upstairs downstairs. Somehow we randomly crossed paths there. And that was the night that I found out that J Bob loves to karaoke Elvis. Do you remember this?
Oh, I'll still karaoke the hell out of some Elvis, man.
Whoa, hold on. Slow down. You karaoke Elvis?
Yeah.
Blue suede shoes. Oh, no, it was...
It's usually It's Now or Never, or what else do I do? God, I do a couple of different Elvis songs, but usually It's Now or Never. That's my go-to.
I just know that this man karaoke'd Elvis so good that I ended up getting laid that night because of him.
Whoa! You got secondhand laid because of Jason's Elvis impersonation.
Absolutely.
All right, we have to do an open micers karaoke expedition where we go and karaoke together.
I'm
And
down for it. All I need is a couple tequilas and the inner Elvis comes out.
But yeah, so let me look here at this list and see what else we have
So
kind of like chronologically. You got something?
well, I was just thinking, like, how exactly when did you become a part of, because you were basically the sixth member of Fall as well. Like, when did you start actually becoming our roadie slash merch guy? Because it was before we got signed, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to even before Jared when the lead singer was Halette.
Oh yeah. That was
I
before
mean,
my time too, because I didn't join
yes, I
until
mean, it was Rob, Steve, Mike,
yeah.
and Halette, and that first show at the upstairs downstairs, me and Mikey worked together at World Gym. He did memberships, and I worked the front counter. And
I remember that you guys did know each
yeah,
other from World Gym.
yeah, and my dad was like, "Hey, I want you to meet this guy. He's in a band. I think he'd be a really cool dude. You guys would be pretty cool friends." So he introduced me to Mikey, and then we started hanging out. He told me about the show, and that's why I got the fake ID made, was to make it to that first show. I made it to that first show, and it just blew me away. I just fell in love with the music. I never got old. It never got old to me listening to it. I mean, even still to this day, promise right here. I put this on my kid. I have an unsealed I still have a sealed version of Fall as Well right here, 3 feet from me, just
Wow.
randomly in my house.
That's so cool, dude.
So after that, I ended up picking up the bass because of Mikey, and that turned into, me hanging out at his apartment and us just hanging out, getting to know each other and playing the bass. And then it was like, hey, come to this show. We're playing here. Come to this show. And then I would, get there, or I would ride with Mikey, and then it was like, hey, you guys need a hand with the equipment. And then it just pretty much morphed into, all right, I know I have a job to do now. You guys are kind of expecting me to do this because I've done it for so long. Then it kind of just, like I said, turned into a job. And then around the time of Jared is when I started coming to the practices almost every day. I mean, practice was 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
I was at the rehearsal spot 5 days a week. And that was and that's crazy, listening to the same songs 5 to 7 days a week.
We were
Year
workhorses.
in, year out.
I think back to that time and I'm like, man, we were freaking workhorses, man. Cause like we worked day jobs and then we would go straight to practice every single night of the week. We would practice Monday through Thursday or Friday, depending on whether we had a show on Friday. And we usually played from Friday to Sunday.
We had 3 shows on the weekends, and it was, Monday through Thursday was practice. And I was living in Saussure at the time. So I was going from Saussure to Ocean Springs 5 days a week, so, my parents even saw, the dedication that I was doing with this, and when we get to, further down in the story and we start talking about, being on the road, they, obviously my parents want what's best for me. And my dad was kind of thinking, stick with college, but they saw the, the rebellious side where I was like, I'm going, and they saw the devotion that I had to it. So they knew that this was going to be something that we rolled with.
Well, yeah, it was the exact same thing for me. Like because when Rob left, the original drummer for Drop and Trowel, aka Fall as Well, left the band, I was still in Frigno, and they asked me, or I can't remember if they asked me or if I offered to play drums for them until they could find somebody new, because they had a show coming up, which was the very first show I ever played with Fall as Well, was at the House of Blues in New Orleans, and this was in May. I had a week to learn the entire set, so I went in and we like instantly clicked. And after that first practice, I was just like, man, this is like, there's something here. And I had a choice to either stay with the band or I was actually getting ready to go off to school to Full Sail in Florida. Like I was actually in the process of going to school. I was getting, I was filling out scholarship stuff, student loans, things of that nature. So I had a choice to make. And I was so in love with the band when I was playing with them and they asked me to be the full-time drummer. I was just like, all right, screw school. Let's just do this. And this became it was not just a band. It was a lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, and it really did turn in, like you were saying earlier, the workhorse thing, because our practice spot was on Highway 90 in Ocean Springs at Mr. B's.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because Mikey would mix chemicals all day in that building.
That's what I was getting to. Is it got to the point to where our rent payment was, and me included, like I was part of the band, so I paid my dues too. We would meet up there once a month. And we would sit there and mix windshield glue for hours, and that's how we would pay our rent month to month. It's just mixing fucking windshield glue.
You walk in that place, and it's like a punch in the nose. It just smells like a chemical plant.
What chemicals go into windshield glue? Are you guys gonna die premature deaths?
We must have misplaced the MSDS book because we didn't. It was just mix bottle 1 with bottle 2.
Okay, I'm gonna Google this.
So I'm pretty sure all of us knocked at least 10 years off of our lives from the chemicals that we inhaled in that place.
Yeah, I work at a pool store now, and it's just like the chemicals don't even bother me anymore. So much shit has just been up in this nose that it doesn't even matter.
Because like that smell just soaked into everything, the carpet, the walls. Like I'm pretty sure they had to gut that building whenever they sold it.
Yeah. But I will say it was a glorious day because when we would practice, Mikey and Steve would have to kind of pregame and make sure they got enough beer for the entire practice. And God, the day that I turned 21, I turned 21 on Mardi Gras Day, if that wasn't already an awesome godsend.
Nice.
So, I mean, that like 2 days later at that practice, it was just like, all right, Gooter, go get the beer.
Yeah. And I was never that big of a drinker. I mean, I'll down like 2 or 3 beers, but man, Mikey and Steve with the Coors Light could drink 2 cases between the two of them in a 3 or 4 hour practice.
Yeah.
And not even be phased. They're just like, no. It's like drinking water to them.
Which brings me to Steve's morphing hair.
Yeah, the more his hair started to stick up, so the drunker
Steve,
he got.
we would play at Studio 90, and this is where it was like really where we kind of like honed in on it was old Studio 90. And Steve would come in beginning of the show, he would have gel in his hair, it would be nicely parted, coming in looking dapper. He would play and it would still be stuck, still there. But as soon as he got alcohol in him, we would just sit back and just watch. And throughout the night, you would just see his hair.
and he had the
and it just goes all these different ways. And it looks like this guy was in like a straight fucking street fight, but no one's touched him or anything. And I mean, like, it got to the point where Mikey would legitimately follow him into the bathroom just to be like, this guy's fucking with us. He's got to be doing something with his hair. Nope. It's just it's his drunk meter.
He became Yancey at that point.
Yeah, so
like everybody knows that.
Started wearing a fucking hat.
The drunker he got, he became Yancey, and so that's how we could tell was his hair started to stick up. But you mentioned Studio 90. Do we have any good Studio 90 stories? Because I don't know if anybody remembers Studio 90. It was the old Surfside
movie theater.
Yeah, the old Surfside movie theater that they converted into it had 4 theaters in it, and they turned each theater into a different themed nightclub. And we used to play in the quote rock club all the time.
Really, the only story I can remember is just bringing home the bartender and dating her for a few months and that weird drama that unfolded.
I don't remember that. But the thing is we used to do, we used to do a lot of Battle of the Bands and stuff like that. And of course, Gooter was our go-to.
Sweep, by the way.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you, but clean sweep.
every
Anytime we
time.
showed up for a Battle of the
Hell yeah,
Bands,
dude.
it was over.
Because we had such a huge
I'll
following.
be right back, boys. You guys keep going.
Okay. Because we had such a huge following. I mean, we would,
Yeah.
we would play no matter where we played. It was we'd have, we would just fill out the bar wherever we played.
And that was kind of like, and by all means, not taking credit or tooting my own horn, but hey, toot toot, that was kind of where I felt like my job was. I was hitting the streets, like hitting everywhere and telling these people like, dude, you got to come check out these guys, and bring in, the Heathers, the Stars, the Christinas, my fam, like all of my family. I mean, my Uncle Randy, for God's sakes, at one point was like rocking out with us, and partying with us till 4 o'clock in the morning, so it was like
you said, back then it was hitting the streets. Like we would make flyers and just go hit. We would post them to, light poles and take them to music stores.
And I would end up going into Edgewater Mall and talking to these store owners and just being like, hey, can I put this up? And they're just like, the manager's like, look, let me put it up for 4 hours. Just like something.
Going out to the mall, just handing flyers to people. Anybody that looked like they would enjoy a rock show.
Yep.
I just don't, in this world of everything being online, I wonder how bands now go about getting people to come to shows. Are there even shows anymore? Like, I don't even know.
That's kind of what I wonder too, it's just like, especially with the whole COVID thing, they had like the satellite shows and things like that, but it's like, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, and the whole like going digital thing, that's just a whole nother language to me. I'm still, pen to paper, I want, the physical copy of it,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard transition. I guess I know what we know what our grandparents were going through, with like going to, from radio to TV, and having, 3 channels and thinking they're on top of the world.
And this was also this time frame we're talking about. This is all pre-Katrina as well, too. So there were
this is the beginning of 2000s.
Yeah, there were clubs to play from, from the entire Gulf Coast, from Mobile to New Orleans, that we would just hit every single weekend, just building a following.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to ask, because I really didn't know, once we got signed, of course we got signed to Universal Records, which was huge for us, and that was kind of a big deal, and it kind of fell through, and we eventually signed with Imprint. Were you an employee of Imprint, or were you an employee of the band?
I don't know.
Because you were kind of like us.
I kind of felt like maybe it was almost like an independent contractor, kind of like the whole like WWE relationship with their talent. It was like, because I collected the $15 per diem.
That's what I was going to say. We got $15 a day per diem while we were on the road, because people think rock stars have money. Let me tell you, only like maybe 5 bands actually make money. The rest of us were living on $15 or less a day. And most of the time that went to cigarettes, and then we survived off whatever we could hork from, the dressing room of whatever club we played. That's when we got
smart and started putting the sandwiches being our rider sheet.
Do you remember every night that we played with Three Doors Down? Like, we would play off. We were on tour, and we would play one like small clubs as ourselves, and we usually had a rider for like, a sandwich tray, which we usually didn't get. Or we would play with the X's, and then we would play with Three Doors Down. And the nights we played with Three Doors Down, like, they had, like, our rooms were stuffed with, like, pizzas and drinks and all kind of snack foods. And we would just take our backpacks and just rake shit into our backpacks just so we would have food to subsist on.
Yeah, because I mean, for those first couple of days, it was like, all right, everybody get your pack of smokes, and then we would be in the back, being counting money and all this, and we would just collectively put our money together for a couple of loaves of bread and some sandwich meat, until we could get to the next place, and just hope that they gave us the sandwiches, and then we just divvy them up. I mean, there was never any leftovers when we left the show.
Yeah. And as far as the $15 a day, everybody smoked cigarettes too, but
Yeah,
most
but
everybody.
not everybody bought the cigarettes.
Yeah,
though.
exactly. I was gonna say like a lot of the guys in the band would take their $15 and buy weed. Me, I got tired of having people bum cigarettes from me, so I started smoking menthols. Nobody would bum cigarettes from me anymore.
Menthols
Yeah,
are
you were
better
the only one
anyways.
that smoked menthols.
Yeah, that's why I started
tried-
smoking menthols. I got tired
I
of everybody
know.
bumming from me.
I tried. I couldn't. I couldn't do it.
I'm just out of curiosity. Around what year was this when you guys were on the road?
This was from about 2001 to 2005, roughly.
Okay, so in 2001, not to make you guys feel ancient or anything, I was a year old in 2001.
We were hitting the road, son.
I was getting some tang and some strange.
And let me put this out there, because ever since we were on the road, I tell the story of when we would be on the road, I was considered the responsible one amongst the upper management that were managing us. So when we were on the road, we always had to have 2 hotel rooms, one for me and one for the band. My room was the sleeping room, and you don't say a damn word while you're in here because it's rest time. And the other room was the party room. And nobody believes me when I say that, because everybody's like, oh, you're partying, whatever. Like, no, my room, if you talk or make noise, get the hell out.
No, J-Bob had a strict, when it's bedtime, shut the fuck up. If you want to continue drinking or you want to keep doing, go to the next fucking room. And when you're ready to sleep, you come in here and you shut the fuck up.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
You would walk into this. This is how J-Bob would sleep.
I still sleep that way. I still sleep like a vampire.
I have actually caught myself like waking up in the middle of the night and I'm like this and I'm just like, oh God.
I'm curious though. The reason I asked what year it was is how much was a Chinese buffet in the year 2001?
Probably $5-6.
Yeah,
you guys should have just.
Probably $5.99.
Do you remember when we were in Charlotte? It was what was it? Mount something, not somewhere in North Carolina, and we were starving, and Chapel Hill, I think, maybe Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and we were starving, and Glenn Mattina, our road manager, joined us that weekend, and the label paid for us to go to the Chinese buffet. And
that was after Glenn came on because I moved to Atlanta.
Oh, so that was after you left, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you weren't there. I was gonna say the Chinese buffet, they actually they were about to close, and we begged them to stay open because we were starving. We were like, please let us eat.
Well, that's one of my tricks when I'm doing comedy on the road is find like the cheapest Chinese buffet in town and just eat enough for fucking 3 meals and just go in there and just load down.
That's what you got to do. We ate so much food at that Chinese buffet. Like, I'm surprised they didn't like actually ask us to leave, because you're talking about like 6 or 7 dudes that are like on the brink of starvation, finally getting food. But why? That was one thing I wanted to ask actually on the show, because I wasn't really sure about your exit from
my departure.
Your departure, because it was kind of sudden.
Yeah.
And I kind of understood, because being on the road is hard. It's not easy. People think, oh, you're out on the road and like you're having fun. Like, you have fun maybe like 5 minutes out of a 24-hour day. Because when you're on the road, it's not a 9 to 5 job. You don't clock out at 5 o'clock and go home. Like you're on the clock 24 hours a day.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you know, and with me, you know, I was on the clock when you guys weren't. You know, like when when we were leaving the show, you know, I would be the one driving through. You know, I would be the one driving through the night. You know, as we're circling around a goddamn fucking perimeter of a city, waiting for Brasso to find the fucking cheapest hotel room at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning.
And that was the thing, like nobody could drive because most everybody in the band either had a suspended license or we had our road manager, Robinero, which Mikey named him Robinero the Habanero, refused to drive because he needed his rest because he was our sound man. And so that left me, you, and Steve, the only ones able to drive. And then when you left, it was me and Steve. And most of the time, it was me and you anyway, because Steve was too drunk to drive. So it was after you left, it was me doing most of the driving.
And then you kind of had those, you know, nocturnal hours anyway. So you were, you know, it was always me and you that was, if one of us was driving, the other one was the co-pilot. And then, you know, it was like a 50-50 shot of whether Lenny was right there on the first row, keeping us entertained as well. Yeah. But
man in the iPod.
But real quick, dude, I still tell this story to this day. These stories to this day is every town we would go through at night. Me and J Bob had this game where we would go on the radio and we would try and find Bruce Springsteen's "I'm on Fire" every fucking night.
And this is why, because we found out that, we've talked to Mikey on this show before. He was one of the very first guests of this show. He was our bass player, and he's from New Jersey. You do not make fun of Bruce Springsteen to someone from Jersey.
Yeah.
They get very angry if you make fun of the boss. And I would constantly try to find Bruce Springsteen on the radio so I could make fun of it and have Mikey damn near throw me out of the van at 75 miles an hour.
And the other thing is, I still, dude, this is one of my favorite memories, and then we'll get back into the departure. But it was me and you, and I think Lenny was about to go to sleep, and we were driving into St. Louis. And the sun was rising. And I just remember just like looking over and seeing the sun with the St. Louis Arch.
Yeah.
And the sun was coming up and I was just like, fuck, this is awesome. And I just like screamed at the top of my lungs for everybody to wake up. And it's just like, guys, look at this fucking sunrise right here. And I got about 8 fuck yous. I'm going back to sleep, and there's only 5 people in the van.
Me and Steve had a moment like that too. We spent literally a month driving around Texas, and you can drive around Texas for a month and never hit the same place twice. It's so freaking big. We hit almost every town in Texas, and there was a night. Actually, it was that same time. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun was coming up. Steve was driving. I was in the passenger seat. Everybody's asleep behind us. We're on our way to the next show, and we're like in the desert, and we're just watching the sun kind of just rise up over the, you know, the mountains in the distance. And Steve just looks over and goes, "Man, isn't it awesome we get to do this?" And I was just like, "Man, like you hit it on the head. Like, yeah, we're going through some like really tough shit sometimes, but sometimes moments like that are worth it."
Yeah. Oh yeah. So getting back to the departure, you know, it was a kind of a culmination of a couple of things. So, you know, with my parents, you know, me going out on the road, they knew, you know, the whole $15 deal and everything like that. So my parents were giving me money weekly to, you know, survive, and, you know, to, if anybody needed a pack of smokes or something like that, you know, help out the guys, you know, whatever I could. But, you know, not to really shift blame on anybody or anything, but you know, we're sitting here making $15 a fucking day, breaking our backs. We're out on the fucking road every day, sleeping on a fucking van bench.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, you know, the office gets to go home every day. They get to eat a fucking full course meal. They get a paycheck every week. Their fucking salary, they get that.
And that was
you
the
know,
thing is like they treated us like shit almost every day, but treating us like, we weren't, we were just like a burden, but we're the ones supporting the label, literally.
Yeah, I mean, we were the main act of Imprint Records. And then when they brought Rob in, and then, he gets drunk and is talking about that he took this job for $500 a week. That was where I kind of drew the line. We're sitting here surviving on $15 a day. None of us, all we can do is call our families. We're out on a fucking 2.5-month tour. And we got this guy that we had to meet somewhere, and he's getting $500 a week because he can fucking adjust a knob.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that. And, like the whole parent thing, it was just like, man, how much longer can I ride out this gravy train before they just kind of say, fuck it, we're done. And I was battling a gnarly fucking like flu bug. It kicked my ass. I was 102 fever. I was sweating, throwing up, shitting at the same time.
I remember that. Everybody got sick. It was when we hit somewhere in Missouri. And
because I know
everybody was sick except me and Lenny, and we wouldn't even go in the hotel room. We would just go hang out like in the lobby or in the van because we didn't want to be around everybody because all you guys were sick.
Yeah, and it was taking a toll on me for a good 4 or 5 days, and we were in, I can't remember if we were in Tennessee or South Carolina, but my girlfriend at the time, Jenny, the one from the Atlanta radio station from the Battle of the Bands that we'll eventually talk about. She came down to see the show, and I had just kind of had it here. I was at my breaking point, and I just took my bags out, threw them in the back of her car, and said, babe, let's go home. Had a powwow with the guys and just explained to them, it was like, look, I've done this for 5 years. I just can't do it anymore. And there was a lot of fucking tears shed that night.
Oh yeah.
And it just, the only thing that I regret is how I did it, because, it was selfish of me to do it to the guys before they had to go on stage. Yeah. I wish I had done it afterwards, like when we were all setting up, but it's just like in the moment, when you just feel that fucking bad.
But I felt your pain. Like I wanted to go home too.
Yeah.
Every day I was just like, God,
unfortunately,
I just want to go home.
I had the liberty of being able to leave. It was like I was okay with, severing those ties and, starting new in a brand new city, and it sucked, and that whole 3-hour ride back to Atlanta, I cried like a fucking child, that whole ride, because, like I had just felt like I had, just cut off my 5 brothers.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. We were like a family. We were attached at the hip, all of us, all 6 of us for years. And then all of a sudden, like you were gone, and we were like, what do we do now? Like Gooter's gone.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing, we saw each other and that was the thing, like even outside band practice, me and Mikey, legitimately every fucking day we saw each other, at least, and it was just like, that was the bond that it was, it went beyond, the band, and it was a real fucking band of brothers, it was just like, we've not J-Bob so much, but, like me, Mikey, and Steve, we fought side by side in a bar, like we've bled together, we've cried together, we've just about knocked each other unconscious with instruments and foolery, but, those were the best 5 fucking years of my life.
Speaking of bar fights, I've seen quite a few bar fights being in that band. And I got to say, when watching Mikey pick a guy up by his throat and choke slam him on the ground while the whole bar cheered was probably one of the greatest moments of being on the road.
Yeah, and I mean, Mikey's only like what, 5'7", 5'8", and he's lifting up a dude, and this guy's like beyond me and J-Bob's eye level, and we're over 6 feet, and he's just yoked him up, and just right back down.
And this was wasn't this in the middle of like a what was the name of that pizza place? Mellow Mushroom? Wasn't that in a Mellow Mushroom bar?
I thought it was at the Sugar Mill.
Oh, it might have been. I don't remember.
Because that was when we all went to the Sugar Mill and all that whole wave of Seabees came home.
That's right.
And it went down at the Sugar Mill, and it went bad. We had broken foots and racial slurs were thrown around.
Oh no, this wasn't that night. This was the night I'm talking about was in Birmingham. We were playing Birmingham, and we had stopped to eat at like a Mellow Mushroom. And I think Mikey was hitting on a girl. Well, it wasn't even hitting on a girl. She was hitting on him, and her boyfriend was like right there. And he's like this huge dude, and he starts talking shit to Mikey, and Mikey's like, dude, I'm not interested in your girl or whatever. Like, and it just started going back and forth, and then Mikey just picked the dude up by the throat and just ran with him like 10 feet and choke slammed him on the ground. And all the dude's friends were like, thank you, he's an asshole.
Dude, what kind of savage is getting a bar fight at a fucking Mellow Mushroom?
Paul as well.
Yeah. Us guys.
But I told the story about on stage, and I guess we can tell it here. It's the statute of limitations is well beyond at this point. But there was a time when everybody in the band, including Gooter, the entire band, we were ejected from what was the name of the town? Was it Odessa, Not Odessa, Texas.
No, it was Beaumont.
Beaumont. We were not allowed to go back into Beaumont, Texas, because we were told if we stepped foot in Beaumont, Texas again, we were going to be arrested. Mm-hmm. We were all going to be charged with felonies because
I think the final verdict. Well, I can't remember. I think I might have heard it wrong, or it might have just kind of been blowing smoke up my ass. But I think they were even saying like they didn't even want us in Texas. Period.
Yeah. Because, like I said, we were at the hotel. We were playing this huge show in Beaumont, and we have a hotel. Of course, I got my one room down the hall, and there's the band room. We're all hanging out in the band room. This is before the show. We're all hanging out, pre-gaming, and we're just drinking. Yeah.
So, sorry to cut you off, but just to preface it a little bit, because you're involved in this, before was a meet and greet at a cell phone store.
I don't remember that.
So we're there. We dropped the trailer off at the hotel. We took the van to the cell phone company, and we started doing this meet and greet. Well, remember a few minutes ago when I said Steve got smart with the whole hair morphing thing and started wearing a hat? Well, this is one of the hat days. So Steve drives us to this cell phone meet and greet. So we're all in there, and Steve is just acting like a fucking dumbass. And Mikey, like them two were Marines back in the day. So Mikey had a really good way of keeping Steve in check, and nothing was working. And Steve was just pounding this water bottle. So me and Mikey get the water bottle, and we walk outside, and Mikey sniffs it, and it's straight vodka. Now, mind you, this is the guy who drove us to the meet and greet. So Mikey's like, all right, fuck this, damage control. So he pulls J-Bob, and he's like, all right, you two keep fucking Steve occupied for this last 30, 45 minutes of it. So we go back into the van. Well, neither one of us was smart enough to confiscate the vodka bottle. So we pretty much just sat and babysat a drunk Steve to a drunker Steve. So when it's now we're getting into like drunker Yancey now.
Yeah. This is when Yancey starts to come out.
Yeah. So we're back at the hotel room.
So yeah, you're starting to cut out a little bit, but yeah, we go back to the hotel, and we have to be at the club in just a little while, mind you. Like we're pre-gaming before the show, and it's just getting rowdy as fuck in this hotel room. Like we're just fucking rowdy, like just rock and roll band rowdy. And I don't know how exactly it happened, but somebody yelled for. I think Mikey was at the windows like, somebody's coming. Gooter, do the goat. And Gooter jumps into the window and does the goat. And if you've ever seen Waiting, you know what the goat is. Up against the window, and they're banging on the window and screaming like, "Yeah!" And I'm like, all right, I'm going down to my room. Go down to my room, and then we have to leave, a little while later and go to the club. Well, it turns out the people that were in the car.
Oh, no, wait. See, this is when you left, and there's a whole nother part of this.
Yeah, I don't even know what happened after I left.
So see, this is where the shit goes down, because when I do my thing, it's like one car. It's nobody, it's nothing big. So
I did forget this part. Yes. Thank you.
So a couple of minutes go by, and Steve is like, I'm going to go take a shower before the show. So he goes in there to, sober up a little bit. This motherfucker in about 5 minutes comes out in one of those little like hand towels from the bathroom. This motherfucker looked like an out of shape Val Venus, the wrestler. He used to come out with a little fucking towel. Hello, ladies. And so he comes out in this little towel, and he's like trying to fucking dance on everybody, but he's soaking wet from being in the shower. So we're all like pushing him off. So he walks over to the window to one up me, and he just takes off the towel and just drops it and just presses up against the window for everyone's glory to see. Well, in the meantime, Mikey sees what's going on, and he looks over at us, and he's like, "Watch this, guys." He was drinking a Coors Light out of a can.
Mm-hmm.
I watched Mikey that day. I watched him proceed to make a Coors Light can disappear in Steve's ass. As Steve has got himself pressed up against the window, Mikey comes up with the beer in his hand, like halfway full, and just comes from underneath and just, attempts to just like insert this beer can up Steve's ass and just like crinkles it till it's like this tall and lifts Steve off of his fucking feet. And so that was pretty much the end of that. So Steve goes back in there, kind of like waddles like a penguin back into the shower, and goes back in there and rinses off. And then, normalness ensues, and then we start to get ready for the show.
And after the show is when they told us told us not to go back to the hotel. And luckily we brought all of our stuff with us, because if we went back to the hotel, we were going to be arrested.
Yeah. So I get a phone call from the office at Imprint Records. And at one point, I'm being blackmailed, saying, like, I'll give you $300 if you tell me who it was. I swear to God, I know. Who was it? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. They swore up and down it sounded like Mikey, and they were convinced that it was Mikey who did it. So pretty much the premise of it was when Steve pressed himself up against the window and made all that noise, an entire church van was down in the parking lot about to walk into the hotel, and they hear a bunch of noise coming from the second floor, and they look up and they just see a middle-aged man stark naked, just spread eagle, pressing his dick up against the fucking glass.
But I remember they told me, and I don't know if this was separate from you guys, but there was a grandmother and her kids, that were under like 6 years old.
Yeah, they said the age range was from like 6 to well in the 80s, and that they were wanting to file charges against like everybody for us being accessories. We were gonna, like, everybody in the room was looking at getting hit with stuff, but yeah, like, it was funny because the wrong guy kept getting the flack for it. They kept blaming Mikey, and then once everything started coming out, even then I would get phone calls being like, Steve's taking the rap for Mikey, isn't he? Just tell me the truth. And I'm just like, no, it really was him. But yeah, he was facing felony charges, and then we were all going to be like considered, accomplices and all that shit. And I know Three Doors had to do a couple of benefit shows
Yeah.
in that town in Texas to kind of have them go easy on us.
Yeah,
That's
so because we were
hilarious.
told at that point, like because we were big in Beaumont, Texas, like they loved us over there. We were on the
Yeah,
Big Dog
so
Festival. We were like #1 on the radio station for like weeks,
so
and then
J Bob, I don't know if you remember, but they actually broke like a radio, like the #1 radio rule. They took their airwaves one day and just completely said, "Fuck this! We're only playing Fall as Well," and they played it from track 1 all the way to track 12, continuous, not a break or anything, and they played Fall as Well on the radio continuously.
yeah,
And that was like considered a big deal, because I actually worked at the radio station, and the two rules we had was you don't play the same song in a 2-hour window, and you don't play the same artist in a 1-hour window.
yeah.
So
And
that was like,
after this incident, we were not allowed to step foot into Beaumont, Texas ever again. Our biggest market in America, Beaumont, Texas, which doesn't sound like a big town, but a lot of it was one of the most popular radio stations in the country, and they would have big artists go through that town. One of the clubs we played at would have people like Reverend Horton Heat, like Saliva, like all these bands would play this one big rock bar every weekend
back in the day.
yeah. But it was a big rock town, and we fucked that up.
We'll just chalk that up next to Voodoo Fest.
Yeah, we'll get into that on part 2
Yeah,
of our
definitely.
conversation.
Have either of you ever actually been arrested before?
Yes.
No.
Okay, Gooter, I want to hear you being arrested. That's the story I want to hear.
This is not going to do my reputation any fucking favors. All right. So I'm 20 years old. I'm less than 4 months away from turning 21. I was working at the radio station at the time. I was an on-air personality, and I worked as a board op. This particular time, I was working a board op job, and I was taking phone calls, and this girl, Ashley, kept calling, and we just talked and we hit it off, and I was just like, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" I used my radio stroke. And she was like, "Nothing, let's hang out." And I was like, "Cool." So I met her and her friend, and it was all cool. We hung out a couple times. So fast forward a couple of weeks later, God, I'm going to seem like such an asshole. God damn it. So I got done hanging out with Ashley, and me and her it wasn't really feeling it. And her friend was just kind of giving me the look, giving me the eye. So I'm in, young 20s. I didn't really give a shit. So I was just like, yeah, I'll give her a ride home. And we started talking, and, me and her really hit it off. So I had a 12-pack in my floorboard, and we went over to a buddy of mine's house, and we started drinking over there. And for some reason, we had the novel idea of I was just going to bring her home that night, rather than her saying that she was staying at a friend's and she had a completely fine alibi. So we drive from Woolmarket to Ocean Springs. So we start hanging out in her subdivision in the neighborhood, and I had a Ford Focus at the time, so I had a really spacious back seat.
I remember that Ford Focus.
The Focus.
The Focus.
And so me and her jump in the back seat, and we start fooling around. And it's kind of like in this new development of the subdivision. And all of a sudden, about 10 minutes later, I start seeing these lights come at me. And then they start becoming blue and white strobe lights. And so I go to quickly try and put on my clothes, and I can't find my shirt. So the cop knows what's going on. Windows are fogged. He sees the beer in the floorboard. I'm going to jail. He has to call the girl's parents. And she gets picked up right around the corner from her house. I couldn't find my T-shirt. Like I said, I look over and she's wearing it. So I'm handcuffed, hanging outside this cop car, and this dad's coming to pick up her daughter. She's wearing like my T-shirt, and I'm shirtless. and that didn't go over too well. He had a few choice words for me, and the cop was just like looking at me real fucking funny, and he just kept laughing, and finally was just like, "Can I ask why you're laughing?" And he kind of like put the rear view mirror up, and apparently I also earned my Red Wings that night as well.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So
Gooter, everybody, Gooter.
so so after that, so when the cop was about to bust us, I was almost, going penetration mode. So I still had the rubber on when the cop showed up. So I'm handcuffed, mind you. I get taken to Ocean Springs County lockup or whatever, and I call my mom. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I'm just like, "Mom," I get my one phone call, and I'm just like, "Mom, you're not going to believe this shit." And I was just like, "Well, since you're the one who bought it for me, I guess you got to come pick me up. I guess have a good story for Dad." So she told my dad that, something was wrong with my car, and she brought bail money. And it was about a good hour and a half that I'm just sitting here laying in Ocean Springs holding cell. They gave me no cot, no covers, no nothing. I'm just like laying on a steel cot, just laying like J-Bob, just like this, just waiting for my mom to come get me and pick me up.
Wow,
Still have the condom on.
That
So my
story
mom comes and gets me.
went places.
So my mom comes and gets me. And I tell her, I'm like, "Mom, please stop at the gas station. I really have to pee." And I just walk into that fucking gas station and just whip that fucking condom off and just flick it up against the urinal and walk out.
And that is where we have to end this episode.
I think that's one of the best stories we've had told on this podcast.
Gooter,
I really do think it is.
It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you again after all these years. I miss you.
Absolutely.
And we're going to have you on again in the next couple of months. We're booked up through May, but we're going to have you come back. We're going into part 2. We haven't even hit any stories yet. We've hit like one story. We have plenty more to hit.
Stories.
This is the nipple of the iceberg here. We haven't even gotten into Weird Al. We haven't even gotten into like J-Bob and the finger bangs. We got shit everywhere.
I need to hear about J-Bob and the finger bangs.
Let's just say we heard firsthand that J-Bob's got enough finger rhythm where he should have been a bass player.
On that note,
hear about this
we're going to come back maybe at the end of May. If we have a spot open at the end of May, I'd like to have you come back near my birthday so we can talk about more Fall as Well stories. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Gooter, where can everybody find you on the internet? I know you don't do much social media these days, but...
I really don't do a lot of Facebook. Instagram, you can find me at Gooter. I made it public, so I'll start to make it a little bit more. I'll be on there a little bit more. On Twitter, you can find me at Gooter.
Awesome.
Just to warn you guys, big wrestling fan, so you'll probably see a lot of wrestling stuff on there. But hey, if this episode does well and the man can live up to the legend, then I'll start being more active and we'll see where it goes from there.
Awesome. Well, Jacob, tell everybody what they can, where they can find us. Actually, let me pause one moment. Hold on. I'll be right back. Hold on, you guys.
Oh.
This has never happened before. You get alone time with me.
Ooh, risque.
So man, I just want to say thanks for having me. This has been awesome. I listen to you guys when I can fit you in between my Jim Cornette podcasts. But you guys are really cool, and it's really awesome to see stand-up comedy making a comeback, and coming back, especially where my old stomping ground was. I wasn't born there, but I was raised there. Did over 20 years there. So, I'm really glad to see, the coast kind of making that comeback after Katrina.
Fuck yeah, dude. I mean, thanks for coming on. When Jason surprised me with booking you, he messaged me, he's like, "Gooter's in." And I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, he messaged me that day, and I called him after work, and he told me, I was like, absolutely. And then he sent me the Lord of the Rings meme, and I had just seen Lord of the Rings once. My wife loves it, so I showed it to her, and she just died laughing. So I knew I was in good hands.
I am so sorry about that, guys. I'm back. I don't know what you guys were talking about, but I came up.
I guess you'll have to watch the episode.
Yeah.
Guess so.
But Jacob, tell everybody about what's going on with your new show.
Yeah, so I host a brand new open mic every Monday night in Biloxi at Temptations, which is on Howard Avenue, where the old Wayward Kraken used to be. We're very slowly building a show there. We're gonna try to do some legwork and get the word out. We might start doing some stuff to sell tickets to there, but please come out every Monday for some free comedy. The last two shows have actually been really fucking fun. Like the last show, it was very small, intimate audience. So we just told like road stories and we riffed on each other. So it was a really cool, fun environment. And check me out March 18th at the Juke Joint for the Drag Meets Comedy Show. I will be one of the comedians. Sadly, I won't be one of the drag performers. But
boo.
Everybody's gonna smile.
Yeah. Well, Gooter, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I can't wait to have you back again because we got a lot more content to get to.
Absolutely,
so
yeah. I can't wait.
Keep
Dude,
that list.
This was fun. We'll definitely do it again. If you're in the Biloxi area, go check out Fayard Fest. My boy J Bob here gonna be beating some skins for that co-headliner.
What is that?
So y'all come out there.
Yeah, the 28th at the Juke Joint. We're gonna be playing, and it's gonna be great. Fayard Fest. The last one was like 2014 or 15, I think. We're doing another one because our buddy Chris Fayard, who passed away a couple months ago, doing a big festival for him. So if you like listening to music, come on out to the Juke Joint on the 28th. It's going to be a blast. But I think that's about it. Anything else, Jacob, before we go?
Nope, I'm good if you're good, buddy.
All right, let me play this music here. If you want to email us, you can email us at openmikerspodcast@gmail.com, at openmikers on Twitter and Instagram, facebook.com/openmikers. And I think that's going to do it for this week. And we will see you guys next week.
Pigs out for Gooter.
Yeah. That was fun.
That was awesome. Right. That was a good episode.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back next week.